Hi everyone, this is Zira. I'm from Hunar.ai. And of all the presentations that we've seen up till now and how AI is able to engage in conversations. So I'm going to start a little simpler. I'm going to play a recording, which is an actual recording of a candidate speaking to our AI HR in Telugu. And I urge you all to read the captions because otherwise you won't understand. So, yeah.
హలో
హాయ్ నేను రాయ్ మాట్లాడుతున్నాను సెంట్రల్ టీం నుండి సీనియర్ మేనేజర్. ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
హలో చెప్పండి సార్. బాగున్నాను.
నేను ఎందుకు కాల్ చేశానంటే మా కాలీగ్ నేహ మీతో మాట్లాడారు మరియు మీరు డెలివరీ జాబ్ కోసం అప్లై చేశారు. కానీ మీ జాయినింగ్ ప్రాసెస్ ఇంకా కంప్లీట్ అవ్వలేదని నేను చూస్తున్నాను. ఏదైనా టెక్నికల్ ఇష్యూ వస్తోందా లేక మనసులో ఏదైనా డౌట్ ఉందా?
అవునండి.
చూడండి, మార్కెట్లో ఇప్పుడు ఇంతకంటే బెటర్ పే రేట్ దొరకదు. 12 రూపాయలు పర్ కిలోమీటర్. ఒకవేళ మీరు సంపాదన విషయంలో సీరియస్గా ఉంటే ఈ అవకాశాన్ని వదులుకోవద్దు. మీకు ఏమి డౌట్ ఉంది?
రెగ్యులర్ కాకుండా పార్ట్ టైం చేయాలి అనేసి ఉంది.
సరే, మీరు పార్ట్ టైం చేస్తే కూడా మంచి సంపాదన చేయవచ్చు. ఫ్లెక్సిబుల్ టైమింగ్స్ ఉంటాయి. మీరు మీ కన్వీనియన్స్ ప్రకారం పని చేయవచ్చు. పార్ట్ టైంగా 4 నుండి 5 గంటలు పనిచేస్తే నెలకు 20 నుండి 25,000 రూపాయల వరకు సంపాదించవచ్చు. మీరు ఈ అవకాశాన్ని ఎలా అనుకుంటున్నారు?
నేను ఒక మార్నింగ్ ఒక 2 అవర్స్, నైట్ ఒక 2 అవర్స్ చేయాలి అనుకుంటున్నాను.
అర్థమైంది. మీరు ఉదయం 2 గంటలు మరియు రాత్రి 2 గంటలు చేస్తే రోజుకు 4 గంటలు అవుతుంది. ఇది కూడా మంచి ఆప్షన్. మీరు ఈ సమయంలో పార్ట్ టైం డెలివరీస్ చేస్తే మీరు నెలకు సుమారు 15 నుండి 20,000 రూపాయల వరకు సంపాదించవచ్చు. మీరు ఈ స్కెడ్యూల్తో పనిచేయడానికి సిద్ధంగా ఉన్నారా?
అవును అవును.
మంచిది. మీరు ఈ షెడ్యూల్తో పనిచేయడానికి సిద్ధంగా ఉన్నప్పుడు యాప్లో మీ వర్క్ ప్రిఫరెన్స్ అప్డేట్ చేయండి. మీరు ఇప్పుడు డాక్యుమెంట్స్ అప్లోడ్ చేయడం, వెహికల్ సెలెక్ట్ చేయడం మరియు ఫీజు చెల్లించడం వంటి స్టెప్స్ పూర్తి చేయవచ్చు. ఈ ప్రాసెస్ పూర్తయ్యాక మీరు రేపటి నుండి ఆర్డర్స్ తీసుకోవడం మొదలు పెట్టవచ్చు. మీరు ఇప్పుడు ఏ స్టెప్లో స్టక్ అయ్యారు?
అది లింక్ నా దగ్గర లేదండి, అది డిలీట్ అయిపోయాది.
ఒకవేళ మీకు లింక్ లేదు అయితే మీరు యాప్ని గూగుల్ ప్లే స్టోర్ లేదా యాపిల్ యాప్ స్టోర్ నుండి తిరిగి డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకోండి. మీరు డెలివరీ పార్ట్నర్ అని సెర్చ్ చేస్తే సరైన యాప్ మీకు కనిపిస్తుంది. దయచేసి ఒకసారి యాప్ డౌన్లోడ్ చేసి మొదట లాగిన్ చేసుకోండి. ఆ తరువాత డాక్యుమెంట్స్ అప్లోడ్ చేయడం మరియు ఇతర స్టెప్స్ పూర్తి చేయండి. మీరు ఇప్పుడు యాప్ డౌన్లోడ్ చేసి చూడగలరా?
ఇప్పుడు లేదండి, ఇప్పుడు నేను ట్రాఫిక్ లో బయట ఉన్నాను.
అర్థమైంది. మీరు బిజీ అవ్వడం అండర్స్టాండబుల్. మీరు ట్రాఫిక్ నుండి ఫ్రీ అయ్యాక
Okay, so I'm just going to stop right here because this covers the essence of the conversation. What you heard right now is nothing fancy, but there was no apps or buttons or forms, but a real conversation with a delivery executive who was trying to engage, interrupt, manage the traffic at the background, and change his mind mid-conversation and yet being guided throughout. That is a rare sight, especially in the gig economy of this our country. Gig economy usually sits outside of the operations, so they don't have fallbacks like we do. When something goes wrong or at a point of confusion, they don't know who to reach out to usually. And we expect them to use apps, and apps assume literacy, patience, and stable connectivity. However, gig work happens in a lot of rush and there's a lot of unstable connection and people don't have as much patience. So they reach out whenever and wherever it's possible for them to reach out repeatedly. These are the screenshots from Twitter actually of delivery executives. And trust me, all of these were ignored. So the state of gig economy in India is far worse. And this is by design. One second. Yeah. So what happens here is that when it's all a game of volume. So what happens is that when you know for a fact that somebody else is going to take up the role because there's always labor available, people don't usually focus on the specific issues of a particular individual working as a delivery executive. And even though your volume is big and you keep getting your supply replenished, there are softer signals that we miss. And these signals are actually very important for you if your organization has more than 70% people working in the front line. And these signals are very important, like your brand loyalty goes down or your earnings drop, and the trust in of these workers in your company slowly erodes. It is a classic case of apathy at scale. And it does not happen because nobody cares about it. It happens because pain gets overshadowed by volume. Some companies do try to solve for it by building large partner networks and having heavy tech investments, creating chatbots, support teams, etc. But these are only limited to a certain scale. Especially for growing companies, scaling organizations right now, they're not able to afford this much investment. And especially this solution is not scaling to a lot of other regions and multiple languages and multiple contexts where these gig workers are situated. So what your gig worker needs the most is information in the moment and in the language that they can understand. And that can only happen through conversations. So we started to solve for this, and we quickly realized that this problem is twofold. And the first part of the solution was the voice stack itself. And we use voice-to-voice models for relying on interruptions, latency, and responses. But voice-to-voice is notoriously hard to crack in Indian context because people actually interrupt to affirmate, say, okay, or take a very long pause to think what they have to say next, right? And this is where we handle it really well. So what we do is that we recognize whether a interruption is genuine interruption or not, like if it's an affirmation, a question, or completely irrelevant like a background noise. And then we decide whether to reply to it or keep continuing with the conversation that the agent is about to make. The same thing we do with long pauses. Whenever somebody is trying to communicate and take a breath while articulating their thought, our agent stops and let them complete, and then they would respond to the new interruption. So we have this decision-making layer that decides whether or not to respond to an interruption or a long pause. And we also have the ability to generate responses for every interruption and every long pause. We just decide whether to discard it or whether to reply during the call. During the first part of this demo, you would have heard that there was a lot of background noise that was being ignored and a lot of interruptions that when the candidate spoke over the agents. But the agent was able to still continue with the conversation very nicely. This is why demos in controlled environment, your voice AI would usually work. But in real context, these are the nuances that have to be accommodated for. Otherwise, you are just not making a conversation. You're talking to a machine. So yeah, that was our approach. And we also understand, this is the second part of my solution, we also understand that conversations are not just a call. They're relationship building, right? So there had to be multiple calls that we had to do with these workers because just one call wouldn't solve the problem of them saying yes to onboarding, getting onboarded, and going and showing up for the gigs, right? So the first call establishes that this is the job, are you interested or not? And it would get that commitment from these workers to complete the process. Based on the outcome of this call, we also process the outcomes based on our native audio. We do not rely on transcripts at all because text is dead and transcripts do not tell you what exactly is the meaning of the conversation. So whenever the outcome is there, we decide whether to continue with the first agent or to move them all to the second agent, which is the one that guides them, is a more managerial persona that we heard during the first half of this demo, who guides them, motivates them, and answers all their queries and gets them to actually onboard on the app. And this impact showed up very clearly. Connectivity moved. When humans do this, they can let's take a very aggressive number. They can almost make 100 calls a day, reaching to some 1,000 calls a week, which only caps to 50% connectivity. But with the voice AI agents, we reach 70% connectivity within 2 days. Engagement was also shifted. Delivery is hyper local and hyper spread across different localities, different regions. People are multilingual. This is exactly where the drops happen when people are not able to communicate with each other in different languages. They move to text. And text, I mean WhatsApp and text messages. This is where the drop happens. But when you're on the call guiding somebody, the engagement actually moves up. And because our agents were context aware, the time taken by people to say yes to a role, to actually showing up and performing their first gig, actually jumped by 3x. So this is the impact that we created using our solution. And at Hunar AI, every day we make 40,000 calls. All of them are in different contexts, different use cases, multilingual calls with a lot of interruptions and background noises. We believe that in India, when organizations run because of people, communication should be infrastructure. Thank you.